Sorry, it took me a minute to get back. Oh, I'm drinking some this Pepsi Zero, and it went down wrong. So I'm like, while you guys were waiting. So that's what I was doing while I was playing banjo on the screen. So I was actually out here dying, but I digress. Welcome to our Week in Weird. Today, we are visiting one of my favorite conspiracies, which is the Tartaria conspiracy. Because the Tartaria conspiracy comes with so much fun stuff to unpack with it. You got basic flat Earth kind of nonsense with ice wall and giants and all. There's so much. You got geocentrism. You got lands beyond the wall. You have mud flood. You have buried cities. You have star forts. You have Cabbage Patch Kids. You have alchemy, which we just talked about a little bit in the previous segment about Saint Germain. There's so much going on. So much going on in the Tartaria conspiracy that you don't even know where to start, where to end, where it all begins even. It's crazy. You got orphan trains and you have forbidden history and ancient orders. And speaking of ancient orders, there's an ancient order of knights. You may notice, or you may see, I don't know if you noticed, this guy right here. It's our Knight of Tartaria. So Tartaria was guarded by knights, apparently. But I'm not going to tell it alone, because the foremost experts on Tartaria is Lucius Aurelian. And they are going to break down the secrets of Tartaria. And I believe if you do like Tartaria too, go watch Bad Science Sunday. Was it last week? I think it was last week that they did Tartaria topic. Anyway, you can drop a link for that, Maya, if you want to send people over to Bad Science Sunday to check that one out. They talked about Tartaria on Bad Science Sunday recently as well. But Lucius Aurelian has tons of videos on Tartaria and all its stuff in history. And look at this. I mean, hopefully this gives you an idea of what we're doing here. And how it's all connected to this wild conspiracy that overarches all of existence. And there was once an ancient empire called Tartaria, etc., etc. But let's get right into it. Let's get into those lovely knights.
Old world architect. It was a time of chaos when the ancient enemy had one goal in mind: to destroy the remaining cities and to destroy the people of Tartaria, of the Fourth Era civilization that preceded ours, once and for all, this final conflict.
Well, the Tartarian Empire was right before the last reset. Now, there's different schools of thought on when the last reset was. Some people will say the last reset was really recent, like is in like the 1930s, like post World War II. I guess it'd be 1940s, World War II time frame. Anyway, but the most Tartarian scholars go with 1776, right? The founding of the U.S. was the turnover from the last reset. And everything before that is a fake history that's been made up to cover the sins of the past and, what led to the mud floods and everything that covered the world. But like cities in the New World, like big cities too, like Chicago, L.A., New York, Boston, Dallas, they were not built in modern times. They were dug out of the mud flood. Last week we talked about Tartaria how Tartaria affected the Mormons. There you go. Yeah, Zarahemla. There's another one of them big cities.
Five Eras theory, we posit that there were several civilizations that preceded our own. There may have been 4, there may have been 5. These civilizations were destroyed by what we consider hard resets. What became of the defense forces of these civilizations, those charged with its defense? Was it lost forever, or was there some trace of them?
I really hope these knights had, like, lightsabers and Iron Man armor. That's what I want. I want them flying around with Iron Man armor, swinging lightsabers around. Fuck yeah.
some lineage that continues to this day. Join us for today's exploration as we seek to answer the questions of what happened to Tartaria's defense forces. Did they survive? The compelling mystery of what became of the defense forces of Tartaria is something that we've looked into before. But today we're going to be examining the account of the monastic military orders of the Middle Ages.
There we go.
We'll be looking at the ninth.
Let's see who we got here. We have the Knights of Santiago, the Teutonic Knights. We got the Knights of Hospitaller, the Order of the Holy Sepulchre, and of course, the ever-present Knights Templar, which is, you know, a whole bag of worms unto itself outside of Tartaria that we'll have to broach at some point. But that's the good thing about being a professional woo debunker, is that I'll never run out of stuff to talk about.
Examining the account of the monastic military orders of the Middle Ages. We'll be looking at the Knights of Santiago subsequently when we explore the Iberian Peninsula. We begin by examining the Teutonic Order. Interestingly enough, all these military orders that we're examining were affiliated with the
I would love to come to Kentucky. Someone would have to pay my way, though. I'm kind of broke right now. So, yeah. I would love to come to your protest, but it was not my budget. I'd love to go to NanaCon, too. That'd be nice, but I's a broke bitch.
Catholic Church, and they followed the First Crusade, the military effort to reconquer Jerusalem from the Saracens at the time, according to the official history. All of these military orders then rose afterwards, and we examine the Teutonic Knights because they are affiliated with the German Order of St. Mary, interestingly enough. And all these military orders were originally founded, and yes, that word was used, in order to protect...
Oh, Sumami, I'm glad you made it here before we got to the Forbidden History segment of the show. I know how much you love this nonsense. Yeah, somebody tell Pangbird me and Bree will open bombs if, yeah. If they pay for a fight. Yeah, I will flash my trans titties at Ken Ham himself if someone pays my way.
The pilgrims that were coming from Europe to visit the Holy Land in Jerusalem. At least that was their ostensible purpose. And when we examine each of these military orders, we find that there are many incredible and what we would define as old world structures that are affiliated or attributed to these military orders. It's rather intriguing, though, to think that there was a time, beginning with the Teutonic Knights, that the Church would actually sanction a military order, an almost independent military order that had the permission and even a charter from the Church to conduct military operations.
That's what the Crusades and shit were all about, too. The Church really helped Europe refine its warfare techniques, right? Because the Church could afford to give their these warriors the finest weapons and armor and stuff like that, and horses and equipment, and so just like a small battalion of these Teutonic Knights could take on a whole unit by themselves, just because they were so heavily armored, or so well equipped, and so well trained. But money can buy you an elite fighting force. It's always been that way. Like, you can think of these guys as the early BlackRock.
And indeed, the Teutonic Knights, despite being founded in what is today the Middle East, operated extensively within Europe. And there were several chapters, several members, and several different hierarchies concerning the Teutonic Knights. It's also intriguing to think of this Germanic culture that existed even before Germany was a nation. The Teutonic Knights were most...
You going to a protest today, too? Sounds like everybody's going to a protest.
Operational in Prussia. And indeed, many of the Grand Masters sought permission from the Church and even from the Holy Roman Empire that was de facto Germany at that time, although really a collection of loose kingdoms, to conduct this crusade, to convert the pagans of Prussia to Catholicism. And indeed, that's the recurring theme that we have with these military orders, although they have different specific histories. Now, do we take the history at face value, or is it possible that there is an entirely...
Tartaria never takes history at face value. Tartaria always digs beneath the mud and finds the Cabbage Patch roots. Gotta go get lobster for your mac and cheese. All right, you be well, John.
Different account with these military orders. Were the Teutonic Knights really knights that just simply came from what is today Germany, even though it was the Holy Roman Empire at that time? Or do they have a very different origin? Indeed, they continued campaigning in what is today Eastern Europe until they were defeated in what is historically known as the Battle of Tannenberg, and it has many other names to it, in which case a alliance of Polish and Lithuanian forces defeated the Teutonic Knights, and eventually their financial ruin came about. The order did survive, and
it's also another way to think about these is they were sort of like a mafia style fighting force too, or mercenaries to some extent, but they were also like, hey, we're not all the orders, but the Teutonic Knights especially we're like, hey, nice little nation you got here, nice little village, nice city you got here. It would be a shame if something bad happened to it. I bet you need some order of knights to protect it, and that you want to pay for protection, right? I mean, that's basically a tale as old as time. That's what ironically enough, that's what Trump's pulling with, or tried to pull with Zelensky. Nice country you got here. It'd be a shame if it were to lose its funding for defense.
As stated before, there are many structures that are attributed to it. But what's intriguing is that the order survived and converted to a holy order alone in the early 1800s. Yes, once again, something else attributed to the 1800s. And here in this image we see the order campaigning for approval from the Holy Roman Empire to begin to convert the pagans of Prussia at that time to Catholicism. And that's the historical account of it. The order was defeated in the Battle of Tannenberg, and over time their power waned. But again, it's intriguing to think of this concept from the official history of a military order that was charged to conduct their own operations and given autonomy and independence to do so. Apparently, as long as they were doing so in the name of the church.
Yeah, it's also as long as you do it for Jesus. As long as you crusade for Jesus, you're all right. Don't crusade for any of these other pagan gods, though.
Interesting when you think about the stated reason, or at least the historically agreed upon reason for the Crusades being started.
I'm honestly wondering if native atheists, I'm wondering if John's lobsters are found under rocks in the creek in his backyard. So those are the types of lobsters I associate with John, not like the ones you catch off the coast of Maine.
There's also many prominent politicians, such as the former Chancellor of West Germany, who were honorary members of the current Teutonic Order. Of course, that's in its present state.
And of course, now it's going to become like an order like the Freemasons, right? Where these guys aren't really soldiers anymore. It's an honorary knighthood.
What else we'll look at is how these particular orders evolved. There's also the mystery of Malbork Castle, built sometime between 1274 and 1406 in what is today Poland. This was considered
in the accepted timeline, though. Well, come on, guys, we know better than that.
Grand fortress of the Teutonic Knights. And of course, records don't indicate who actually built it. Scholars and historians actually have to extrapolate from financial statements and what little historical record we have to indicate
not anything interesting, T.S. Christine.
That the Teutonic Knights were even the ones who built this incredible structure. And it should be noted that it is the largest castle by area in the world. What else would it be? And it's also a UNESCO World Heritage Site. But for the longest time, it was the main base of operations and the headquarters of this order, if you will, in Europe. And looking closely at this castle, we'll see that there are many impressive signs of old world architecture. There's also very unique and interesting symbols. Now, of course, we could say that these symbols could all be stated to be the heraldry of the Teutonic Order.
They're occult symbols to summon. Ah, that'd be so cool. I thought some fiction. Okay, behind these occult symbols in this old building, right? And you touch them in a certain order or whatever, and then the Teutonic, or not Teutonic, the Tartarian knight armor flies to you like Iron Man, right? And then a sword pops up out of the stone, and when you grab it, it glows like a lightsaber. Yes, I'm here for it. I'm here for it. This is headcanon now for how the Knights of Tartaria operated. Oh, my education I had. I went to a community college and became an electrician. And then I worked at a company that sent me to welding school. So I'm a certified welder too. So it's a lot of tradesman stuff. Is the kind of things that I'm equipped to do. I also have my my DCS, which is was it DDS, which is like a CNA for developmentally disabled, and and I am certified as a pharmacy tech in Illinois, Texas, New Mexico, and Oklahoma. Oh, and Montana too, but what can I ever go to Montana? I've wore many hats over my life, both in and out of the closet. Most of that labor stuff was when I was still in the closet. I probably wouldn't have done it if I had been out of the closet, but I was expected. You have a warrant for your arrest? Yeah, I've actually been talking to Byron about showing him some welding stuff. Because, yeah, they're interested in learning a trade. My dad was a woodworker, so I know some woodworking stuff too. But
order at that time in the Middle Ages. But when you look a little bit more closely, you see that there tends to be more symbols. You also see a very interesting architecture behind this particular structure. This castle, this fortress, this citadel, whatever you want to call it, seems to have many incredible geometrically precise construction techniques and details on the exterior and the interior. Indeed, you could be forgiven for thinking that this is a structure that was actually constructed in the 1800s, especially with all the elaborate brickwork. And it is rather peculiar that...
Yeah, Ember is a hat expert.
Much like many other structures, they do actually admit, they being historians and scholars, that there is no written record of who actually built this very impressive castle. There is no shortage of statues and other figures affiliated with it that give us the impression that, yes, this was...
And if you push a button, the statues come to life and defend the building. Hell yeah, do it. Let's run with that.
Very much a castle of the Teutonic Knights, and then subsequently given to Poland after the defeat in the Battle of Tannenberg. But what's the true account behind it? Was this really a structure that was built by this monastic military order? Or is there something else behind it? Is it possible that instead of this military order being some order that was founded in the Middle East, that originally its origin was in what is...
My most important credentials are my cryptozoology credentials. I'm the world's leading cryptozoologist. And I have I'm an experienced paranormal researcher. But I'm jaded now because my paranormal research turned up goose egg, and I want to expose it all so people start looking at the world through a more skeptical lens, which is what inspires this show.
Today, Europe. That quite possibly it was a surviving military force or even a particular military unit that happened to be operating within this area when the reset happened. And that this structure that they were operating in, this very impressive castle, that is today a UNESCO World Heritage Site, actually has a very different
I like that art on
origin.
the ceiling.
That it was.
That's beautiful. There's a unicorns, or two unicorns. There's a brown one and a blue one. And there's some, are those cockatrice?
Was in fact either their headquarters of their unit or possibly some structure that survived the reset and then this military unit decided to inhabit. And this is where their operations began. Now granted, this is speculation and it's theory, but once again, what makes more sense?
I've honestly considered going to one of those WU universities and getting a WU degree so I can like troll people like Kent Hovind and stuff and be like, you might have your divinity degree from wherever, but I have my degree in parapsychology from, St. Germain University. Maybe I'll found my own WU university and start giving out certificates. Do you want a certificate in mythicism?
Are we to simply accept the official historical account that this very elaborate spiral stairway was constructed by someone unknown who was in the employ of the Teutonic Knights during a time frame when such constructions were very difficult? Indeed, we haven't really even entered the Renaissance. This castle.
I remember a weird episode of Unsolved Mysteries about that too. It's like, oh, they built this spiral staircase, and I'm like, I still don't, to this day, don't understand what was so special about it. I mean, it's a staircase. It spirals.
Has no shortage of very impressive artifacts.
The staircases I like are the ones in the woods that you find in creepypastas, that just a staircase out in the woods, and if you go up it, you never seen again. I love those creepypastas.
And what's the true account within these artifacts?
Yes.
We'll have to do a follow-up exploration examining many of these.
I'm not gonna call it the Hive diploma though. I'm gonna not associate it with me. I'm not Trump. If I'm gonna run a grift, I'm gonna distance myself from it and stand on the sidelines and watch it mill in money. Yeah, it's gonna be. You look into them eyes. Yeah, my eyes are freaking. There you go, there. But, good morning. But I would do, something like St. Germain University would be a good idea for it, a good name for it. It actually does sound like something that, like, at a glance would be legit. Yeah, I posted a thing that asked, like, what even color are my eyes? Because it depends on what color I'm wearing. They're gray, they're green, they're hazel. My eyes are, like, technically they're hazel. Hazel green might be a better way to describe them. They do turn blue, but only when I wear certain colors.
Artifacts that still survive in these incredible cathedrals and these castles. And indeed, the surrounding towns around this...
Your eyes are dark chocolate, sweetie. I ain't listening to that, Sumami. Dark chocolate caramel, maybe? Because there's a little bit of that lighter golden color in your eyes, too, sweetheart. I've looked into your eyes. I also have the Gateway Institute for those familiar with Rabbit's lore. If we're counting correspondence courses, I am a private investigator. It doesn't take much to pass those open book tests that are based on no expertise, right? Correspondence courses. Yeah. Like, well, it's like I went to trade school to do like the electrician and welding stuff. But like the welding stuff, most of that I learned on site and on the job. I knew how to weld before I started school. It was just basically passing all the exams and doing the welding test, which was no problem because I'd been doing it for years before that as a welding apprentice to my then father-in-law.
Castle in Poland are just as impressive. showing advanced and detailed architecture, something that we don't really see attempted today. Of course, we have the usual reasons for why this is. We lack funds, there's safety standards, and it just doesn't make sense to construct buildings like this that have an artistic appeal. It makes more sense to build things that are simply functional. And those may all be true. But why is it we constantly see this pattern repeated everywhere we go? And we're also going to have to do a follow-up exploration of Poland, in addition to our explorations that are planned for the Iberian Peninsula. There are many incredible structures that we haven't looked at yet. And whether it's in Poland or Spain or examining the accounts of these castles, we do see the same precision, the same detailing.
Oh my gosh, this place has basement windows. Tartaria confirmed. I don't know if you all know this about Tartaria, but anytime that you see windows, basement windows, it means that this is a Tartarian building dug out of the mud flood. And this used to be the first floor. These ancient people didn't have basements or something.
Architecture. Constructed at a time when there was no mechanization, there was no motorization, logistics were very problematic. And even though they had more time in Europe, at least according to the official history, there are many details of it that seem to defy the ability of the logistics available at the time to explain. Indeed, you look at the foundation stones of this particular tower and the arrangement of the blocks over the door, and we've seen these patterns before. Many
Mason?
of the great forts in the United States and across the Caribbean and many other areas of the land. What was the real purpose behind this tower? Was this yet another defensive tower? And are we really to accept that this impressive castle of Malbork was constructed simply for defensive reasons? There's many artistic elements within it.
They're to look pretty.
Why would a monastic military order, charged in the middle of conquering, or subduing, however you want to say it, these Prussian pagans that were in existence at the time, according to the official historical account, want to build a castle that has such devotions to both art and even a religious fervor to it? Well, the religious fervor is easily explained, and of course we even have cannons in the courtyard of this castle. Ah yes, where do we go without our wonderful cannons? And look at the courtyard and the stones that's actually made up. Looking at elsewhere in the interior,
Like, they wanted to make a nice castle to show off how rich and powerful they were. It's not like they hand built this themselves. They hired contractors to do it. So, I mean, they'd have hired the best.
we'll see the examples of arches
Again, the church is rich, like super rich.
and columns, and even an impressive tiled floor to go along with all the bricks. Again, one could be forgiven
Fox, you mean your Tartarian cottage?
for mistaking this incredible castle for being built in the 1800s. And once again, we see that very unique and impressive checkerboard floor. So why are we focusing on this one particular structure?
Because it's a beautiful building, I guess. It looks amazing. There's a lot of artisans put a lot of love into creating this castle.
According to the official history, we don't know who actually built it. And we certainly know that Gordon Ramsay wasn't around to design and architect this impressive kitchen, although they certainly must have had a cook like him who could prepare their fine meals. It's also interesting.
That would have been amazing to work in a kitchen like that back then, though. I mean, most people had, like, the area around their fireplace, right? And having a nice big kitchen like this, yeah.
When we think about the fact that the monastic military orders were all founded on the principle of piety, but also chastity, and finally, poverty. And yet, the remains of these military orders suggest anything but poverty. They seem to be very materially well off. Again, looking at the official historical account. But if we can...
We are covering a pastor who thinks Ken Ham is doing great research. Saturday Night at the Atheist. Okay. If I ever sell the place, I'm going to list it as a Tartarian cottage. That is going to up the value.
Consider
absolutely.
Other theories of their origin. If we consider the fact that these actually were established units, or at least the successors of established units of the Defense Forces of Tartaria,
The Defense Forces of Tartaria.
then suddenly we have an entirely different explanation that makes a lot more sense. We have the existence in the...
Oh yeah, those are modern bricks. Like, they're not those. At least a lot of those bricks are modern bricks. They look like modern bricks to me. I mean, I'm not a mason or anything, but that's 100% church money built, right? Yeah, you can tell when someone was built by the church because it's freaking they have artists build it basically.
presence of these structures with their fine geometric precision, who no doubt had more advanced capabilities of construction, and undoubtedly had a very advanced logistical system. It's that advanced logistical system that we oftentimes
I love these windows. My friend Sandy does stained glass windows.
don't even consider, and people who defend the mainstream never even address. Now, it's not to say that it could not have been completed or done, as we're...
Other thing about the church, you say that about, yeah, don't you have money like that back in the day where the church and royalty, they were the same people. Like, if you were like the third son of a king or something like that, second son of a king, you would join the, or become part of the church. So you'd like have your family in control of the church and the state. And then you could really fleece those people for them dollars. Not all the time. That did happen a lot. A lot of non-direct lineage members of the royal family became were high up in the church. And the church was, built upon that. Multiple royal families across Europe,
we're told in the official historical account.
Which is ironically, they'd also change their names so that they wouldn't necessarily be directly associated with their family. So it would be like they trying to covertly cover their nepotism. It's like, oh, that's Cardinal Joseph, not my brother Stephen the Third. What are you talking about?
However, looking at things objectively, it seems very unlikely that given the logistical capabilities at the time, they could have actually even assembled all of these construction materials. There's also the fact that this impressive castle, if it is indeed hundreds of years old, and for all we know it could be much older.
For anybody who's interested in an update, Henry is currently 21 pounds. Him a big boy.
Is still standing to this day. And how many structures are we building now that will still be standing even 100 years from now? I'll leave that question to you. Looking elsewhere in the details of the castle, we see many icons and symbols that we...
Sumami's she's ruining the mystique with her, research and timelines. That's Sumami, that's if you believe the mainstream narrative, the history books present as how this happened. This was dug out of the mud flood. It wasn't built in the 20th century or restored. It was dug out. Don't you know? Henry is Dr. Ben's dog. He's a border collie pit bull husky mix. And he's really rambunctious. You might just heard him bark. I don't know. I heard him bark. It's not bad. I don't mind him barking. He's a cutie pie.
We've seen in other locations, and of course not just in Germany or Poland. Poland is also quite interesting as a nation because of its rather unique status, and even looking in more recent history with things that develop with Poland.
Sumami, it seems like you just haven't been watching enough Bad Science Sunday, or Live from the Hive for that matter. Otherwise you would understand that the history as you were taught in school, at university and such is not real. Tartaria.
Poland concerning the Second World War. But looking across the cathedrals and in the castle, you'll see that there are many design elements that are overlapping with other incredible structures that we've looked at. I'm trying to imagine a limited group of Teutonic knights walking through this impressive castle. Who exactly did build it if we take the historical account at face value? Where did they find these impressive architects? And even the architect.
I assume that when you fall asleep, that you have some sort of nest up in an upper corner somewhere in your apartment that you crawl into and curl up. That's just that. That's my headcanon.
Who are not documented at all in this particular account, who actually built it. And how did they go about building it?
I like that door.
And what was its true intention and purpose?
What's up with this bright colors? This is almost rainbow colored. You got reds and yellows and blue, purple, green. Yeah, every color of the rainbow here except for, well, there's a little bit of yellow over here. What's up with that, though?
Because it seems rather hard to believe that it was simply constructed for defensive purposes. Indeed, it seems to have...
They did worship stuff there, too. They lived there. They trained there. It was more than just defensive. Yeah.
Have many other uses as an overall structure. And no doubt it did. And some of these artifacts, which we can of course attribute to the religious foundation of the Catholicism of these military...
Now, if you don't know, Catholicism is the Catholic Church is who's responsible for the last reset. Because Jesus, in Tartaria, Jesus already came back in the last cycle. But the Catholic Church is trying to cover it up and make us think that he's going to come back, that he still hasn't come back.
Orders. Is it possible that there's another explanation for the origin of these unique artifacts? And indeed, looking elsewhere across the nearby communities in Poland, we do see other great towers with elaborate brickwork and windows within them. Yes, of course, you could say that these are for defensive...
Not windows!
...purposes. But then you look elsewhere across the town and you see a little bit more of an artistic flair. You see the same design elements that we've seen in other places that we've looked at. Now, there are many defenders of the mainstream narrative who will simply say that this was merely medieval masonry construction. And I suppose the statues were just as easy to do at that time as well, because everybody lived so well during that time frame. Of course, there's always the conflicting account between how difficult things really were. When you look at nearby cathedrals to Malbork Castle, you'll also see a similarity in the...
He went to get his rabies shot today, if you're wondering why I was bringing up Henry stuff. This morning he had his first checkup since we've got him, getting his shots and getting weighed and everything.
Construction, and indeed the piety that seemed to be readily apparent, at least according to the official account. But looking at Malbork Castle, you can see that there's much more than just simply a defensive fortification in mind when it was constructed.
Bricks don't make very good defensive fortification to modern weaponry anyway. Bricks tend to crumble in on themselves, but if you fire a cannonball at them, that's a cannonball from this time period. That matters. These are it's an art style. I like it. Very Polish. I like the eyes right here. Do you see the eyes? Right there. And then right there. Yeah, it's watching you. Those are the eyes of Tartaria. Those are the Teutonic, or not the Teutonic. We're still in the Teutonic Knights, yeah.
There's elaborate constructions that show many arches, many geometric precision.
Bro winks hard to this castle for 5 minutes for over 10 minutes. This castle's really got...
And even decorations that endure to this day. Now I have to ask the question, in reality, how many times has this structure been renovated? What was its actual origin? And what are the purposes of these columns here? It's almost as though someone was trying to show what they could really do at that time. We also have the many statues and reliefs that are seen across the castle. And once again, we almost get the indication of something...
Yeah, don't get me wrong. These are gorgeous, beautiful buildings, doll. It's just, they're not, I mean... obviously dug out of the mud flood. The funny thing is like, you can't do that with brick, right? Have any of you all ever dug up like an old brick stone or brick walkway or brick wall or brick floor that had been covered in dirt for decades? And the bricks are like rounded and small. So a mud flood would not red dug out of the earth or clay, yeah. Red clay bricks are going to they do absorb water, right? Not bad, but they once they're baked, but you soak them. Yeah, he's peeing. Perfect pause. Don't forget to jiggle, sir. He's got a sword stuck in the ground while he takes a leak. Yeah.
A bit more advanced than what we might expect to see, whether it's in the construction itself or what it's actually depicting. We, of course, have no shortage of old sketches or drawings of the castle and how it looked in its fullness of glory. It's quite intriguing to me that this castle managed to survive.
I mean, Notre Dame's one that comes to mind when you talk about these old buildings burning. I don't know why, but it thrilled me to see Notre Dame burn a couple years back, because the Catholic Church deserves it, I guess. I mean, I know it's a historical building and more and has artistic and cultural significance and things like that, but yeah.
Survive 2 world wars and many other destructive events over time. And what exactly do these iron figures here in this courtyard represent?
Those do appear, yeah, Christine. Those do appear in a lot of Tartaria stuff. Those the Yemen and the Middle Eastern skyscrapers, the old like clay ones. They're not brick. I don't think. I think they're like sort of like I keep wanting to say terracotta, stucco. Yeah, like a stucco skyscrapers. And they'll talk about those. And like, oh look, ancient skyscrapers. How do you explain this? And it's like, yeah, these guys got dicks out. Look at them dicks on these guys. What the hell am I even looking at here? Is this the same castle?
And what exactly do these iron figures here in this courtyard represent? What exactly are they displaying from?
Why are their cocks removable? It looks like you grab the dick and move it off and pull it off. There's like a little square around it. What the actual fuck is going on here? These are crazy. Look at that.
From the era of the Teutonic Knights, were they added later? Who really constructed them? And what are they really telling us? Are these the unfortunate...
He's zooming in on the wrong part. Zoom in on those cocks. I want to understand why they got the square around them.
Individuals that originally constructed the castle? What exactly is being displayed here? And by all means, let me know what you think in the comments.
They got squares around their heads, too.
Elsewhere in the castle,
but the squares around their genitals are what's most important, I think, at this point. Notre Dame burning.
We'll find more of the icons and symbols that we might be more expected to see, showing the armored knight on horseback.
Maya's doing the hokey pokey.
And oddly enough, showing the interesting headgear. Armored knight on horseback.
It does look kind of like a unicorn.
More expected to see, showing the armored knight on horseback. And oddly enough, showing the interesting headgear, which does endure to this day with the official uniform of these military orders. And naturally, we would have a depiction of a gargoyle or a demonic figure to be found in this castle. This pious castle that was constructed by a monastic military order. We go to the military order of the Order of Knights of the Hospital of St. John of Jerusalem.
Girl, I was like that about that plantation house burning too. I'm like, woo! Up in smoke. I don't know if that was jade or not. It didn't look like... Well, I mean, I guess it could have been. Not that one. This one. That does kind of look jade. Not sure, though.
Order of Knights of the Hospital of St. John of Jerusalem, or as they're more commonly known as the Knights Hospitaller. Founded in the early 1100s, as opposed to the Teutonic Knights who were founded in the later 1100s. And they even have as a secondary symbol the Great Maltese Cross. Of course, when we look at these symbols of these ancient military orders, and really we have to say they're ancient because by official history they're hundreds of years old. What's their origin? When we
by
look at
historical, yeah, not by Tartarian standards, though. Come on now.
depictions and accounts of the
Monkey. The order had monkeys. Which order are we on now? Knights of the Hospitaller. The Knights of the Hospitaller had menageries of monkeys and birds. Is that a badger?
ancient military orders, and really we have to say they're ancient because by official history they're hundreds of years old. What's their origin?
Dogs.
When we look at depictions and accounts of the Knights Hospitaller, though, we tend to find some conflicting accounts. There's also the fact that the Knights
They seem to love some fucking monkeys. I'm liking these guys. Any order of knights that has monkeys as part of their as their aesthetic, I'm gonna hang out with those guys.
Hospitaller was involved in several significant military campaigns. And even in this particular depiction, there's some rather odd figures. What exactly is going on here with these particular animals? And what are these Order's Grand Masters really doing? We have this depiction of one of the great knights of the Knights Hospitaller in a military campaign, but when we look down towards the bottom of it, we see a particular individual who appears to be suffering for some unknown reason. We have the military campaign, such as the Siege of Rhodes, in which the Knights Hospitaller managed to withstand a siege by the Ottoman Turks at that time, a siege in which they were vastly outnumbered. There's numerous other military confrontations that they were involved in. Now, once again, stepping back and looking at the greater picture, could it be possible that this Knights Hospitaller was yet another unit of the original defense forces of Tartaria that somehow survived?
Defend Tartaria to the last man. No. I like the rapier look that they got going on here, though. Rapier sword fighting is the sexiest kind of sword fighting. Although katana sword fighting, if choreographed properly, can be pretty epic too. I know choreographed is a cheat, but
indeed, many allusions to the Knights Hospitaller survive to this day, and they're also prominently active on Malta. Yes, Malta, that very unique and interesting island in the middle of the Mediterranean that we've explored before, with its incredible star forts. And, of course, they have a incredible...
So we did star forts. I think we did star forts, didn't we? Did we do star forts? No, I'm curious. We're going to find out. Nope, we did not. I think we talked about star forts on a different Tartaria video, though. We have tons of Tartaria content. I should make a Tartaria playlist, honestly. We have Trees of Tartaria. Hans the Tartarian.
Bombard that they used to defend during one of the sieges from the Ottomans. It's also the classic underdog story that the...
I like this. It's like a giant pinball launcher.
Knights Hospitaller was
a bombard,
able to withstand these sieges from these vast military forces that the Ottoman Empire was
Ooh, that castle's kind of cool looking.
Of course, that's the official history.
No, there's no artistic flair on this one. It's defensive. This is a defensive castle. The location, the slope leading up to it, everything about this castle says it's made for defense. Like, it's made specifically so a force coming from this direction that we're looking at it from is going to have to fight uphill and then get stonewalled, literally, while they have all these parapets and stuff that they can fire out of every little window here. They can dump stuff out of these portholes here. You see these portholes here? If someone comes up to the wall, there can literally be like one person in here running back and forth, dumping hot oil, defeating a whole legion of troops down here. So this castle is some sick shit, right? You got archers all along the tops. You got cannons firing out of these windows too, or bombards, depending on the put a trebuchet on top. Yeah, launch some big stuff. Now I'm customizing it to my own liking. I'll shut up now.
Ben, though, that these military orders, these descendants, or somehow connected to the lineage of Tartaria's original defense forces, had an entirely different purpose. And over time, after reset, they had to establish their own purpose. They either tried to survive against the forces of the reset, or they had to capitulate and operate within. There's also the interesting comparison, or even the opposite mentality, between the Knights Templar and the Knights Hospitaller, right down to the coloring and the red cross on black field and the red cross on white field. Does it symbolize something? Could there be a different account with these particular orders? Or does it once again show the entire dichotomy?
What if the Tartarian nation split and had a civil war? And there was the Hospitaller versus the Teutons, and then the Templar come in. And
the duality that seems to be a primary feature of our current civilization. When you look at the military efforts of the Knights Hospitaller, you will see that oftentimes it was many of these sieges that occurred within the Mediterranean. And oftentimes the valor of these knights were critical to retaining possessions within the Mediterranean. There's also the fact that there are current modern members and that this order survives to this day, and people who still wear its icons and its uniforms. Quite an interesting consideration. We go from the Knights Hospitaller to the Knights Templar. And
now, this one's my favorite. I'm going to speed him up a little bit, though. The Knights Templar is probably my favorite of these orders, just because there's so much woo-woo wrapped around them.
No more greater controversy than examining the account of the Knights Templar. Of the military orders that we're looking at today, the Knights Templar is the only military order that did not officially survive to the contemporary time frame. Now, it should be noted that there are many present-day organizations that claim a lineage or descendants from the Knights Templar. But is that true? Even looking at some of the original depictions, we have conflicts in terms of what uniforms they wore. It's also noted that the Knights Templar were featured as the frequent antagonists of many fictional works, all the way from the works of Walter Scott to Ridley Scott to this day. Quite an interesting consideration when you look at it. The Knights Templar met with a very undignified and horrifying end when its order was rejected by the Catholic Church, and at the urging of King Philip of France, their members were burned at the stake. Indeed, the order was completely destroyed. This being the last Grand Master of the Knights Templar, displayed right here, Jacques du Molay, who in the early 1300s...
Jacques du Molay?
Along with many prominent members...
What's with the Wolfman here? Look, there's a werewolf at the table.
The rest of the order were officially put to death. Now, is this exactly what happened in history? That an entire monastic military order was accused of heresy by a king? A monastic military order that apparently had more authority. Indeed, there is the requisite plaque that is dedicated to Jacques de Molay in Paris to this day. So what exactly happened? Why do we have these conflicting accounts with the Knights Templar? Why is it there are some that say that they were a force for good? And remember, all of these monastic military orders were originally founded to protect pilgrims. And yet, as stated earlier, when you look at fictional works such as the stories of Robin Hood, or even to this day, the modern Kingdom of Heaven, the Knights Templar...
I like that golden dome. I bet they're going to claim that that is a antenna or something to communicate with... Because there's this Tartarian overarching myth about the domes being like some kind of communication device. I don't know if he's going to get into it here or not.
They're always depicted as antagonists. Were they evil? Were they a corrupted force from the original defense forces of Tartaria? There's also the references that the Knights Templar were the Knights of the Dome, or Knights of the Round, even affiliations and references to King Arthur. They were present at the Battle of the Horns of Hattin, which was a decisive defeat when the forces of the Saracens defeated the Kingdom of Jerusalem and the major military orders, at least again according to the official history. But once again, is there a very different account? Why is it that there are so many references to the Knights Templar that exist to this day? Remember that there officially is not a direct lineage from the Knights Templar that survived. The order was all killed in the early 1300s. And yet, for whatever reason, we are informed that the symbols and the icons of the order are still prominently displayed on many of the successor organizations that continue to this day. Successor organizations...
Conspiracy. Hello, my unfinished journey.
Organizations that proudly display these icons. Are they the same icons?
Clap for
or is
the
there some other
Wolfman.
account behind this?
Yes.
And again, not knowing the true nature. Even looking at the recent TV show Robin of Sherwood, there's a prominent early first season episode called 7 Poor Knights of Acre, where Robin Hood is nearly killed by the Knights Templar and has to face off against 7 members of their order. Indeed, the entire conflict is started because the Knights Templar are trying to recover a material item, very different than their poor knights mentality. There's even an infamous line between the sheriff and the Knights Templar where the sheriff says he represents the king, and the Knights Templar respond by saying they represent the King of Kings. So how exactly was it then that a king of France was able to get this entire order excommunicated and deposed by the church? It seems to be a conflicting account. And yet when you
Well, I mean, schisms happen all the time. There be schisms between knight orders of the knights in the Catholic Church. That's not to be unexpected. Once the knights wore out their usefulness to the church.
look into the original account of the Knights Templar, there's nothing but conflicting accounts. The fact that apparently they...
But we do get Baphomet from this, because these guys were subject to the Inquisition, and some of them were like, oh yeah, we worship a demon named Baphomet because they were tortured. It's the same stuff they did to the witches back then to get them to confess to kissing devil buttocks and stuff like that, and we get the image of Baphomet from that.
Evolved from being a very pious and very poor military force founded to protect pilgrims that ended up becoming one of the early, if not the earliest, bankers of Europe. Yes, all this is attributed to the Knights Templar. Now, is this true? Is this the original Knights Templar? Or was the order that was completely put to death and destroyed in the 1300s, or whatever time frame it really was, actually the original military defense force that did survive? And that the use and the references to the order is merely a corruption, or perhaps a means of showing a victory over a force that was found to be in conflict with the current powers that be? It's really hard to say. There's many possibilities. We don't know the exact allegiance or what really happened. It could well be that the Knights Templar that were put to death really were the corrupt villains that we often see depicted in fiction. Or it could be
they weren't. It was the Inquisition, yo. The church was redefining anything anything in operation outside of the Pope's control as of the devil. The Knights Templar, a 200-year-old order of mystics. Mostly, I mean, they started off as a military unit, but they were like mystics and priests and stuff. Like they had their own little sect, right, where they did all the things, and that was a threat to the church. The church was like, "Fuck these guys, they're witches, burn them." And what are you gonna do? Everybody was. They tortured you till you said you did the most abominable thing, so that they would stop torturing you and just let you die. That's how bad it was. And that's what they did. That's why you have all these middle-aged witches and werewolves and people confessing to all sorts of nonsense, black masses, and they point at each other. But the Knights of the Templar got caught up in that, and this was the result.
That there is something to be stated for the original pious and poor means that these knights had. It's always been one of the details I found interesting about the account of the Templars, and indeed the other monastic military orders, is the fact that they were stated to take a vow of poverty. And yet we have accounts of this great Templar fleet that roamed the Mediterranean and caused a lot of different issues. Indeed, there are still references in the accounts of the U.S. Navy that talk about the lineage of this Templar fleet, although some argue if it ever indeed existed. It's quite fascinating to consider.
So it's folklore. Let's make sure that we're presented as folklore and not fact then, buddy.
Many conflicting accounts of the Knights Templar. We have one account that they really were the great knights of old, much in the same vein as Arthur's knights, that put the concept of chivalry at the highest, and the basic form of chivalry, which was protecting those that could not defend themselves. Indeed, we see this in the baseline values of these military orders, and we even see this in this depiction of the two...
The original Baphomet was the head of John Baptiste. Okay, I'm not sure what you mean by that. So, Baphomet is a he, they, she. It's a they, them, because it has a goat's head, black fur all over the body, goat's head, a woman's chest, well, I shouldn't say a woman's chest. It has breast. He, she, they. It has breast. It has a penis. Cloven hooves. Raven wings. And it makes these symbols with its hands. I need a statue of Baphomet for my shelf behind me. Actually, I like Baphomet. I have Cthulhu back there already.
Knights Templars riding one horse because they lacked the money to purchase more horses. We also look at their very terrifying end, the official historical account which says that the entire order was destroyed, every member hunted down. There are some accounts, and indeed they're conflicting, that other orders did bring in the surviving members of the Knights Templar, such as the Teutonic Knights.
Yeah, King James was nuts. He was like James. Was James the Fifth, right? James. No, James the. Is it James the First? The one that was right before the Elizabethan era. Yeah. I want to see a drag queen or king version of Baphomet. I would do that.
Again, indicating more of a relationship, despite the fact that there's many years between their official founding. And again, there's still many impressive structures that endure to this day, and whether you want to think of them as churches or fortifications, or both fortifications.
That's modern construction there, right? I mean, that looks like a modern building design. When I say modern, I mean like 20th century building designed in the style of ancient castle. I could be wrong, though. Maybe it is ancient, but...
with chapels, they do again show the very impressive signs of
that's what
elaborate
I expect
advanced
to see.
construction. And indeed, when we
That's what I expect to see when I talk about an old castle, an old actual ancient building.
look closely at many of the fortresses that are attributed to the Knights Templar, we'll find this advanced Gothic construction, as they call it. And is that all it is? Or does it have some other application? And indeed, is it the same account as the Castle of Malbork for the Teutonic Knights, that this was simply the structure that they occupied? I even think of the film Ice Pirates, which refers to evil Templars from the planet Mithra. So we can even go to science fiction, and in this case, a comical science fiction film.
Let's go to science fiction, of course. That's where we'll find the truth at.
We still have this legacy of the Templars being evil. It even says so in the opening crawl. And in the film, they're depicted as being science fiction medieval knights, if you will.
There you go, Ember. James the First of England is James the Sixth of Scotland.
So, but if you pay a lot of attention to the actual costumes, and indeed some of the symbols of the costume, you find that there seems to be something else that's indicated. And it's a wonderful chance to see a very...
Which we can circle all the way back and start talking about, get all the way back to Francis Bacon and Mary Queen of Scots and all, yeah, oh goodness. The tumultuous 15th through the 17th century for the British Isles. My.
Cheesy early 80s film, or more mid-80s film, with Robert Urich as one of the Ice Pirates. Also very interesting, considering the affiliation of Templars with pirates. But then, they're not the pirates? And indeed, as we said, there are many organizations that still display the symbols of the Templars, and indeed claim that they have a modern affiliation with the Templars, which is fascinating given the fact that the Knights Templar was completely...
I like their floofy hats. They're silly.
...destroyed. So is that really the account that's going on? Or is it simply a means of showing respect? But why would anybody show respect to an order that was excommunicated and order destroyed by the church? And finally,
because not everybody bows to the Catholic will that these guys were actually demon worshippers, y'all. Not everybody's like, oh, well, the Catholics said they worshipped Baphomet and were devil worshippers, and were excommunicated, so fuck those guys. No, they're still like, yeah, these guys were cool. They were like an order of knights that worked at whatever work they did, in their regions that they were operating in, and yeah, just doing their thing. So we don't have to bow to the Catholic Church. Holy shit.
The Order of the Holy Sepulchre. The Order of the Holy Sepulchre is probably the most intriguing. It's also officially the oldest. Founded by Godfrey of Bouillon, one of the central leaders of the First Crusade in 1099. The order endures to this day and indeed seems to have the largest official membership. It's facilitated by the Pope himself. We also have this depiction of King Baldwin IV, wearing the symbols of the Order of the Holy Sepulchre. Baldwin the Leper King, portrayed by Edward Norton in the film Kingdom of Heaven, and quite well. We look at many of the structures of the church.
Yeah, fabulous hats are an important part of religion. And then it's so crazy because, like, as a trans woman, I'm like, in ancient Babylon, I would have been a temple priestess, and here I am making YouTube videos for pocket change. Such is life.
Of the Holy Sepulchre in Jerusalem, considered to be the most holy site by many within all of Catholic Christianity, and indeed other sects of Christianity. Of course, there are diverging views, but it is safe to say that this has always been a very important location. What was the reality, though, behind this particular order, and what happened with it? Why does once again we seem to have these conflicting accounts of what these orders actually did? Was it founded to protect pilgrims reaching the Holy Land? Was it founded to protect these very religious structures that have the affiliation with the trials and tribulations of the life of Jesus Christ himself? We even have early floor plans of the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. Do they represent something else? And is it possible that this structure might be a lot older than we could begin to imagine? I've oftentimes suspected that the baseline or the guidelines of the major monotheistic religions, and indeed all the other religions across the land, do have a lot of truth in them, and that they may have an origin that is far older than we can begin to imagine. But it's also suffice to say that many of these orders, no doubt, have been changed over time. How much of their original purpose endures to this day?
I'm surprised he didn't put the Masons on here. I guess the Masons aren't knights, they're Masons. But I'm sure he has Mason videos. We have to revisit at some point. But Knights were more interesting than Masons to me because they're, well, mostly because of Baphomet. I'm not going to lie. I like Baphomet.
You will find that this particular symbol comes up a lot along many holy books and many references to Jerusalem, and it indeed does represent the Order of the Holy Sepulchre. But is there another account behind it? We oftentimes think about these references that each of these military orders have to the original Knights of the Round Table, or Knights of the Round, such as the Knights Templar. You'll also find that there are no shortage of fine burial arrangements for former members of the Order of the Holy Sepulchre. And quite fascinating that this order is still dominated by the Catholic Church to this day, with the Pope officially as the head of it. And then we have these old images of Jerusalem from the 1800s, and it already does look like it's been around for hundreds or thousands of years, and indeed it does conform to our expectations. We're going to have to do an exploration of Jerusalem at some point in time, and really look at the origin of some of these impressive structures. These are considered to be the most holy sites for the three major monotheistic religions in the land. But is there another account behind these structures? Did something behind these religions actually originate within the city of Jerusalem that's far beyond our current understanding? Or is it simply all as written between these different religions? This is referred to as Christian graffiti that's in the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. Very interesting looking.
Christian graffiti. Yeah, because we were, like, when it comes to the Middle East, we were invaders. We were vandals. We were an invading force coming in and fucking shit up. And yeah, any artwork that we made I say we because I'm European of ancestry. Any artwork that was made in public spaces in this portion of the world would have been vandalism.
Graffiti, and I find it fascinating that they refer to it as such. Is it possible, though, beyond all of these religious origin stories and these accounts of piety, that these orders actually have a different history than we could ever begin to imagine? That they are, in fact, the surviving military units of Tartaria's defense forces, the forces that did manage to survive the reset. Perhaps they took refuge in these incredible old world structures that, for whatever reason, were impervious to the effects of the reset. Perhaps they were simply trying to survive the forces that were trying to hunt them down and destroy them. Or it could be an entirely different account, that after the reset, these orders eventually declined and fell into corruption. And indeed, many of what we see with the ideals, the values of these orders being corrupted over time is a recurring theme. Originally, they were founded with the order of chastity, piety, and poverty. Yet, suddenly they gave themselves to material wealth. Looking in the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, we see the...
give in to material wealth is not what it seems like to me he's trying to spin it that the Catholic Church excommunicated them because they became enamored of wealth. But actually it was like they worshipped the devil was the whole thing. And that's what the Catholic Church said about everybody else back then. Any other religious order or religion in general, any other religion, any other practices, heathenry and savagery, kissing the devil's butt.
The very depiction of Jesus Christ himself. And yet a very interesting artistic
Be safe, Ember.
depiction, especially when you pay attention to things such as the fingers. Is it possible that there's something else being alluded to in this beyond the divinity associated with Jesus Christ? What exactly is the art in this mosaic referring to? And is there another connection with these military orders that we cannot even begin to imagine? Indeed, we see...
So this is post-crucifixion, I guess. We got all this. We got three saints here. And you know they're saints because they have the halos over their heads. But this is Jesus. I'm not sure who all we have here. Where are my biblical scholars? Who are we looking at? Which saints were? Is this Thomas here? Obviously, Paul's not going to be here.
See the same signs of what we might think of as divine architecture with the
I like that they're finally trying to get their Jesus on par with the Korean Jesus, though. Y'all seen Korean Jesus? He's jacked, so at least they're giving their Greek Jesus, or I guess Tartarian Jesus, some apps.
geometric precision and even the various incredible lighting behind it. There's no doubt that it may be the piety is quite real, that the religious and spiritual connection is quite real. Or it could also be possible that there is a much more complex and very unique explanation to understanding the true account of these military orders than we like to believe. It's also
Let's, who we looking at here, Cap? Which saints? Who's white beardy? You gotta know these guys, right? Korean Jesus is hot as fuck. He's ripped, right? He was here before. I think he was here before. Way back at the beginning of the show. He was here for CrypticCorner, part of the show anyway. But you know, we have three saints. We have a saint in purple. And I'm guessing this is for a Catholic piece, but got a saint in purple. Too late. Yeah, you're more older stuff than that. Yeah, this is later church stuff. Oh, well, damn it.
signs of
Don't put your hand up if you can't tell me who I'm looking at. No, okay, it's fine. This is like later development stuff. This is like medieval development of religion.
what we might think of as divine architecture with the geometric precision and even the various incredible lighting behind it.
We were further ahead than that, though. Where are we at? I didn't mean to jump all the way back there. Let's talk about the magical lighting. There we were.
Graduate of the University of Bologna. What are the odds of that? All these things seem to come together when you actually study history, and in a way that doesn't seem to be easy to explain. Now, these connections would be explainable if perhaps the history was connected, or dare I say, even studied, and then brought
Kip out here talking about straddling testaments. Tell me more, doll.
to a point where things might overlap a little bit more than they're supposed to. Perhaps that's what we have going on with this account of these orders, and why we have so many conflicting accounts with their origin. And of course, in the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, you again have these very unique and intriguing items, these most holy religious items. Is there something more behind them? Do they have a greater power that's beyond spiritual power?
I hope so. Let's get a magic mirror. Is that a magic Templarian mirror? Are we still in the Templar, or we moved on to Holy Sepulchre? Yeah.
This is Edwin O'Brien, current Cardinal and former Archbishop of the Military Services of the United States. And he's also a member of the Order of the Holy Sepulchre. Now, isn't that interesting? The Military Services of the United States having an archdiocese. Now, of course, on the surface, that would not be too alarming or questionable because the military still has its chaplain corps. And, of course, the chaplain corps encompasses many different faiths. Of course, I find it interesting looking at this image of American service members.
Is it true that Kip Davis is the Karen of biblical scholarship? Word on the street.
Actually being preached to while they have their weapons up on the wall. Now, is there anything alarming about that? No, it's just there's something that it reminds me of in the past. The past of having these monastic military orders that we're looking at in this exploration being preached to by members of the church hierarchy. And indeed, this particular individual who was the...
They got killer hats, though. They may be weird or maybe a strange church, but they got like some wicked hats.
Archbishop. It's also fascinating when you think of the other connections of the United States military, such as its ongoing presence within...
I do not consider Neil and Derek part of the biblical scholarship community. I'm sorry. They may talk to biblical scholars, but they aren't.
Europe that continues to this day. United States European Command, which is the major component command that has...
Well, I shouldn't say they aren't. They'd be like freelance biblical scholars, I guess. Independent biblical scholars. I don't know how you describe that.
Been present within Europe since World War II, originally headquartered here in the IG Farben building. There's also the concept of the fact that the United States is the only nation whose military divides up all of the geographical areas of the known land into military areas of responsibility. And European Command is the major combatant command that is responsible for all of Europe, which also just happens to include the entire area of Russia. But back to the Order of the Holy Sepulchre, you can find there are...
Yeah, because the capital of Russia is in Europe. And then you move, as you move eastward, what you're experiencing is called colonialism.
Still many members that are active to this day who wear the icons and the symbols and the rather unique uniforms, if you will, of this particular order. Again, is this alluding to something? And indeed, this order has survived from its founding to today. There was never a time of purging or destruction. But we have to ask the question, why is it that these orders...
Enthusiastic, untrained amateurs. Yeah.
...endure to this day? Why are they venerated in such a manner? And did the orders originally survive? You can even wear some pretty fancy uniforms if you're a member of the Order of the Holy Sepulchre. Or if you're one of the other...
Ooh, a sash. If you join this order, you can get a black sash.
There are current organizations that claims to have a lineage from one of these original holy orders. So what...
Get a gold necklace. Hell yeah.
What's the connection? Is this an actual connection? Or is this merely a display of trophies, if you will? A defeat or a victory of these original orders? It's hard to know what the history is really about, and of course after seeing these uniforms I realized I was probably a little too critical of the uniforms that were shown in Dune the miniseries on the Sci-Fi Channel. I always thought the Sardaukir's headgear looked a little, well, silly, but now I'm reevaluating it.
Yeah, the silly hats are important for any kind of religious order. I think we can all agree on that.
I also think of the connection of the Brotherhood of Steel from the Fallout series. Going back to the original 2 games, the Brotherhood of Steel was actually descended from a U.S. Army unit that had survived the Great War, or the nuclear exchange, or the...
Oh yeah, Tim Pool cracked the ceiling. He made it. He got made fun of on the Daily Show. He got roasted on the Daily Show about
reset event, if you will, in the Fallout universe. That they preserved technology and gradually evolved into an entirely new organization, a Brotherhood of Steel. Indeed, their original leader was depicted as being Captain John Maxon, a U.S. Army
proto-stormtrooper
captain who was rather abhorred by the actions that the scientists in the facility that he was charged with protecting were committing against innocent individuals. And he took matters into his own hands and killed the scientists. Now, of course, you could argue that there'd be no modern military officer who would do a thing like this. It might be bad for his officer evaluation. But the entire concept, though, of a military unit that had been descended and then evolved after a reset event taken from the Brotherhood of Steel seems to apply to what we're looking at for these monastic military orders. But as always, the official history could be true. Again, it just doesn't seem to be likely that every single detail...
But the video game history could also be true. I mean, it could be the real history. It could be the history from the video game. We got to keep an open mind here.
Tale of it is true. And maybe significant portions of it have been altered. But what are your thoughts? What do you think about the military orders? Are they the remnants of the defense forces of Tartaria? And why all the connections to this day? Thank you for joining me. Please like, comment, and subscribe.
Please comment and subscribe. Alright, so that was Lucius Aurelian giving us the Knights of Tartaria. And like I was saying before, they got a lot of out there weird stuff. The Occult in the Old World sounds fun. That's from 5 months ago. Sport of Kings. What? These are members only, though. I'm not a member. Unknown Lands. Here's the Star Forts. See the Star Forts? They're all about the Star Forts. Vatican map. Members only. We talked about the Vatican, though, last week. The Secret Vaults. Was that last week or was it the week before? It was last week, wasn't it? I lose track of time. My days run together anymore. Don't get old, kids. Yeah, Vaults of the Vatican was last week. Definitely. And it was like, hell yeah. It was a lot of nonsense. Beanie Shapiro. Yes. Actually, do I have time for that? I think I do. Here.
The quantum effect wipes out pain and allergy symptoms in less than 30 seconds with 0 drugs.
Huey Strong.
Pastor Dave and hundreds of...
You silly bitch. Here we go.
Whores in this house. There's some whores in this house. There's some whores in this house. There's some whores in this house. I said certified freak. 7 days a week. Wet ass P word. Make that pullout game weak. Yeah, you effin' with some wet ass P word. Bring a bucket and a mop for this wet ass P word. Give me everything you've got for this wet ass P word. Beat it up, N word, catch a charge. Extra large and extra hard. Put this P word right in your face. Swipe your nose like a credit card. Hop on top, I wanna ride. I do a kegel while it's inside. Spit in my mouth, look in my eyes. This P word is wet, come take a dive. And continue along these lines. And it gets significantly more vulgar. Like, a lot more vulgar.
Muted. There we go. All right. Thank you so much for tumbleweeds. Yeah. I got my audio back now. Thank you. That's gonna wrap up our coverage of the Knights of Tartaria and their impact on the secret world of hidden before the reset. It looks like they have a 2.5 hour live stream. Holy shit, let me show this to you guys. Of Willem Dafoe content. The marvelous old world of Willem Dafoe. Dafoe's old world. What the hell? Hold on, we're going to look real quick.
Land of origin of Willem Dafoe, that being the state of Wisconsin.
It's really weird.
Come join me as we explore the marvelous old world of Willem Dafoe.
Like what? So someone needs to do this with me. Holy shit, that's crazy. Anyway, yeah, I'm going to wrap this segment up here. Then we got the bestiary, and then I'm going to go do a protest or something. So, yeah. That was Lucius Aurelian from Restitutor Orbis talking about the Knights of Tartaria. I wonder if Willem Dafoe is a Knight of Tartaria. That might explain a lot. What if Willem Dafoe is Saint Germain, and Saint Germain is a Knight of Tartaria? Yeah. We got it all figured out.